Hi everyone, this is Satya.
And welcome to our Dialog Yoga podcast series called Time Management Hacks. This is obviously part one of the series. And so we thought the whole concept of bringing this hack to you would be to give you some quick workarounds on how you could manage your time more effectively, especially when all of us are working in a remote working setup. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about some of the unique techniques that help manage time effectively. And we're going to learn it from none other than one of our really respected GPMs, Ravi. Ravi's had a ton of experience managing large teams and complex organizations like Salesforce. And I'm sure with that experience, he'd be able to share a bunch of his interesting views and perspectives. So on that note, Ravi, thank you so much for doing this with us and welcome to you.
Thank you, Satya, for having me in this session. And a warm welcome to all of you. The topic of time management is one of the most evergreen topics. There's a lot that has been written about it. There's a lot that has been talked about it. But it is never enough. And the simple reason is that time management is influenced by a lot of factors, social, professional, technology. So all these makes time management a moving target. And especially, as Satya pointed out, in the face of this pandemic, which has changed a lot of things in our life, in our day-to-day life. It's important to examine this. And you will see that before the pandemic, our time management was in a certain way. And after the pandemic, again, it's likely to change. So let us explore this and talk about some of the hacks that is tailored to you.
Thanks, Ravi. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with with this whole initiative, Dialog Yoga is essentially one of those really unique ways of sharing perspectives that help improve an employee's efficiency. You target a healthier work culture and generally go about instilling a lot of empowerment and confidence as we go about working in our day jobs. Obviously, in this particular topic, we're trying to we kind of cover an array of real life scenarios. We try and make it as relevant as possible, and the whole purpose through this is to sort of have very shared perspectives that are relevant and which will help you in your day-to-day roles as you go about working. So when we talk about time management in itself, Ravi, how do you, obviously it's a huge challenge, and it's not really, it doesn't really, it's not relevant to just individual contributors or managers or leaders. It is literally a widespread thing that's discussed. So how do you think this is a challenge across all roles, especially when we look at a work from home scenario? I'd love to hear your views on that.
Yeah, sure. So when you look at individuals and then you look at teams now, and if you ask this question, when does a team perform at its peak? Now, if it basically depends on the dynamics of the individuals who are part of the team and how effective they are in terms of the skills that they possess in order to achieve the goals of the team, and also to a large extent how effective they are in terms of managing their time so that they maximize that effort towards achieving that goal. So to me, these two things, an individual managing his time and a set of people coming together to achieve a particular team goal, are inseparable. They are like two sides of the same coin. But when you actually get to understanding what it really takes, then most of the time it boils down to the individual level. And then once that is achieved, then it rolls up to a team level. Now, if you come back to the pandemic situation, I think one of the things that I have personally seen and experienced is that with the pandemic has brought changes to the way we work. And one of the most obvious one is that we are all working from home. Pretty much all roles, all teams are working from homes. And when this initially set in, it brought in certain benefits, because this is not something that we normally used to. We always used to go to office and then have our regular office day and then come back. Now, the new thing that it brought about was that now you can work from the comfort of your home. You spend more time with the family. There is no commute. All these things showed up as benefit. But very soon we realized that there are also challenges to it. And if you look at those challenges, and if we closely examine why it became a challenge, this is what I found. So if you look at the pre-pandemic normal office day, how would it look like? You would go to office at a particular time in the morning, and then you meet some of your colleagues, your friends, have a chat, then have some coffee, breakfast, or take snacks, take some breaks in between, you attend some meetings, you work, and then you socialize a bit. You do all these things. Now, in this pre-pandemic work day, you see that the rhythm of the work or the rhythm of the day would be that you would naturally have certain breaks in between where you would move and do things which are not related to work. And these things now have completely gone because you are working from home. So these breaks that what you would see in a normal work day would give the individual time to relax, to take attention away from the work, and then that would help them to re-energize and then come back and do the work with much more energy and enthusiasm. I think that has gone away, and a sort of new boredom has set in, which is going to bring down the efficiency of the person, as well as to regenerate within those breaks. I think that to me is the biggest miss that has happened. Now that it has gone away, and we expect this pandemic to be there for some more time, meanwhile we need to now figure out how we consciously take these breaks, which was happening naturally in the pre-pandemic days. Now, I think that presents a double challenge. Now, everybody is operating in the same model. Everybody has set their priorities, and what used to happen with such easy collaboration by just meeting or talking now needs to happen through a Zoom call, and you need to talk about it, give context about it, and while you do all these things, you also need to plan for these breaks, personal breaks, that have gone away from this new working from home situation. So I think that to me is a big challenge, and I think that is something that we need to effectively address from a work standpoint as well as from a personal standpoint.
So when I look at it, Ravi, from just capping this all in 30 seconds, initially we never had this problem of physical rejuvenation, because you were in office, even if you were mentally fatigued, you always knew you could take a walk around, meet people. Today we are talking of both mental and physical rejuvenation. So that's one point. And I think the second point is the whole emotional wave of remote working has seen it ebb and flow. So it started with high energy, then it went down a little bit, then people are starting to get used to it. So we're seeing all kinds of phases here. And so when you look at the foundation of it, prioritization becomes such an important factor in time management. And in this episode of Dialog Yoga, Ravi and I are going to, and of course, Ravi is going to kind of share, one of the most widely used, popular and effective management techniques called the Eisenhower Matrix.
Sure. So the Eisenhower Matrix is one of the very effective tools out there. Now, before we go and understand the Eisenhower Matrix and what it is and how it can be used by each one of you to manage your time, we will first understand what is the basis of this. What is the organizing principle of a tool like Eisenhower Matrix? And I think this is best captured by 20th century German philosopher and writer Goethe. And he says, things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. I repeat, it is things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. To me, this is a very, very profound statement. I think it applies to a lot of things in life as well. And it brings out the importance of prioritizing the right things first and not make them lose that priority at the expense of the least. So this is the fundamental principle on which the whole Eisenhower Matrix is constructed. Now, before we talk about what it has and what it does not have, we need to understand two factors. One is urgent and important. So these are the two factors on which the whole Eisenhower Matrix is based. So first let's understand what is urgent and what is important, and then we'll delve into the quadrants. When we say urgent in the context of Eisenhower Matrix, it means that those tasks that cannot wait, it has to be attended right now. So those are the ones that we call urgent. Now let's come to important. Now the important tasks are the ones which can wait for a limited period of time, but it has to be completed in a timely fashion to avoid more fires or more urgent tasks. I think the second part of this explanation is more important. It has to be completed. There is no option of not doing it. If you don't do it, then it is going to create more fires and there will be more urgent tasks, which will make the time management very less effective. Now, based on these two factors, we will look at each of these quadrants. Quadrant 1 or Q1 are tasks which are urgent and important. They're urgent as well as important. So these are things that needs to be immediately attended on. And these are pressing problems. These are things like crisis and deadline-driven projects, so on and so forth. All these would fall into quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is not urgent and important. This involves tasks like planning tasks and tasks with a little bit of a distant deadlines. And typically most important activities are performed in quadrant 2. They are more of a prevention type, things like relationship building, planning, exercising, yoga, all these which are important to both your work as well as to your personal well-being fall in quadrant 2. Now quadrant 3 is urgent and not important quadrant. So these are things like calls, emails, reports, and any interruptions. All these things fall into quadrant 3. Now quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important quadrant. These are typically the time wasters, the trivia, the things that we indulge sometimes, which really doesn't accomplish anything, but it does take our time. So that is quadrant 4. So these are the 4 quadrants, and if we can take all our tasks and then prioritize based on these 2 factors and effectively maximize quadrant 2, which is not urgent but important, then it will make us more proactive. So there will be less fires, less urgent tasks, and that way we can strike a balance across these quadrants and be more effective in terms of managing our time.
So, Ravi, this is so fascinating. I'm just, the whole concept behind prioritizing what's urgent and important. It's really fascinating. When you take this back to people on the ground, one of the things they constantly talk about is, how does this become relevant in our kind of setup? Why does it get difficult? And why are there so many obstacles in following this? So how have you seen this play out, in these kind of setups where it's a blurred line between urgency and importance? How have you seen that pan out?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So if you look at this, it's a pretty simple matrix, and at first glance people might say, hey, I can apply it, and then there's not much of a difficulty in this, we can go do it. But the reality of this is, for people who have tried this, they know this is not such an easy thing to do, and the fundamental difficulty comes from when we try to optimize our tasks around quadrant 2, because the key to the whole time management here based on this matrix is to maximize quadrant 2. The more you maximize quadrant 2, you are better off. And if we have to do that, what is it that an individual has to do? Quadrant 1, there is not much you can do with quadrant 1, because these are things that you have to attend for whatever reasons. It is there, and there is no time it can wait, and you have to do it. So quadrant 1, there's not much. So if we have to take time away from other quadrants and then maximize it on Q2, the only 2 quadrants that are left is quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Quadrant 3 is urgent and not important, and quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important. So we need to figure out how we take away time from these tasks that currently are in our Q3 and Q4, and then give that bandwidth to Q2 tasks and then maximize on Q2. And when people start doing that, what happens is they will have to say no to certain tasks in Q3 and Q4, and then some of them have to be delegated out. And I think this is where the issue comes. And many times when you say no, people think that they will be perceived in a different way, or people might be perceived as saying that he's a difficult person, or he doesn't want to do. These type of perceptions come into play. So learning to say no to those things that actually do not contribute to Q2, and inculcating that ability to say pleasantly, courageously, smilingly, non-apologetically to those things that doesn't contribute to Quadrant 2 is the crux of the matter. I think if an individual can do that, I think he will be able to employ this with ease. And just to illustrate this point, I will share a personal experience. When we are currently in Q3, we are at the end of Q3 in Innovasor. And when we were planning for Q3, which was end of Q2, I was asked by one of the reputed technology forum in the San Francisco Bay Area to speak on a forum as it relates to platforms and how people can think about platforms, what they can do, and how can they build platforms that are scalable. So given everything that was going on for Q3 planning, I didn't have much time to do it, and I didn't have time to prepare for it, nor to go and attend that. But the people who are requesting me, who are people whom I had known for a long time in the industry, and I couldn't say no. So I obliged to it, and I said I would be on the panel to go and do it. So after I did that, I knew that this is something that would bring down my Q2, Quadrant 2 priorities. Therefore, I had to move it out. However close and however much I wanted to attend this particular panel. So then I had to call another friend of mine who used to work with me in one of my previous companies, and she also operates in the same domain. And I requested her to attend on my behalf, and I sent an apology letter to the panel coordinators saying that so and so will attend, and I won't be able to do this time, but definitely I will try to do it next time. So I had to do this, and then finally my friend accepted, and then she did it. So the point here is that sometimes you have to say no in order to make your Quadrant 2 more effective, and to pay the right attention and give the right priorities to the things that really matter. And these are things that needs to happen on a day-to-day basis if you have to use this Eisenhower Matrix to fully use and effectively manage your time so that you achieve the goals that you desire. And now, on top of this, coming back to the pandemic thing, once you have identified everything that you have in Q2, you also need to include those personal breaks which are important for your day, for your entire work day. And then once you have Q2s, then slip in these personal breaks into it in a way that works for you, so that you not only have the right priorities from a work standpoint, but you have the right energies and you can perform these joyfully.
Wow, this was just amazing. I mean, such pertinent, pointed, specific examples. Absolutely, wonderful. And I think it's to really sum it up. I think prioritization's biggest one of the biggest things that people often fail to do properly is to say no in a way where there is a plan. And I think simply saying no doesn't help. If there is a no to a response, always try and build some confidence to the person you're saying no to, saying you have a plan behind it, and that just gives the impression that you have prioritization for not just yourself, but you also have empathy for others. And so on that note, Ravi, I really want to thank you, for making this happen. Obviously, to all our listeners around in Innovacers, stay tuned for our next episode on time management hacks. We're obviously going to talk about the legendary Elon Musk's secret to success. I'm sure none of you would want to miss it. Ravi, once again, huge appreciation. We hope to see you and hear from you again in the future. And to all of you out there listening to us, stay safe, be well, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.